Emily Carter almost said no. She was standing in her small apartment in downtown Chicago, phone in her hand, staring at Hannah's last message. Stop overthinking and just come out. For months, Emily had built a quiet routine around herself like a safe wall. Work at the marketing firm, gym twice a week, dinner alone, early sleep. After her breakup earlier that year, she had promised herself she would not rush into anything again. Love had left her embarrassed and drained, and she had slowly learned how to enjoy her own company. But that Friday night felt different. The city outside her window glowed with life, taxis sliding past like streaks of light, people laughing on the sidewalks below. She felt 29 going on 40 and she didn't like it. So before she could change her mind, she typed one word. Okay. The decision felt small, almost careless, but it sent a nervous spark through her. An hour later, she stood in front of her mirror, brushing her long brown hair over her shoulder, choosing a navy dress she hadn't worn in months. It wasn't bold, but it made her feel quietly beautiful. She added simple earrings, a touch of lipstick, and told herself this night meant nothing. Just music, just laughter, no expectations. When she stepped out into the crisp October air, Chicago greeted her with cool wind and bright lights. The rooftop lounge Hannah had chosen sat above a historic building, all glass walls and soft golden lights. Inside, jazz music floated through the air, smooth and welcoming. People stood in small circles, drinks in hand, sharing stories about work and travel and weekend plans. It wasn't wild or loud. It felt grown up, relaxed. Emily exhaled, tension easing from her shoulders. Maybe this wouldn't be so hard after all. Hannah waved from near the bar, already smiling, already glowing with confidence Emily sometimes wished she had. "You look amazing," Hannah said, pulling her into a quick hug. Emily laughed, brushing it off, but warmth spread through her chest. They ordered sparkling drinks and stepped closer to the railing where the city stretched endlessly below them. The skyline shimmered under the dark sky, and for the first time in weeks, Emily felt something close to excitement. She wasn't thinking about her ex. She wasn't replaying old conversations. She was just there, present. Then it happened. Not dramatic, not loud, just a glance. She noticed him standing a few feet away near the far railing. He wore a charcoal jacket over a simple black shirt. His posture was relaxed, hands resting lightly on the metal rail as he looked out over the city. There was something thoughtful about him, something steady. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't scanning the crowd like he was shopping for attention. He looked comfortable alone, and that caught her off guard. As if sensing her gaze, he turned his head. Their eyes met. For a brief second, everything around her softened. It wasn't fireworks or fantasy. It was recognition, like seeing a face in a crowd that somehow felt familiar. Emily quickly looked down at her glass, her heart beating faster than it should. She told herself she was being silly. It was just eye contact. But when she glanced up again, he was still looking at her. Not in a bold or careless way, but curious, almost cautious. She felt heat rise to her cheeks. Hannah was mid-sentence about a co-worker's office drama, but Emily's attention drifted. She was aware of him now. The way he shifted slightly, the faint smile at the corner of his mouth when someone passed by. She wondered what his voice sounded like. She wondered if he was waiting for someone. She wondered why it mattered. This wasn't why she came out. She came to feel free, not distracted. She took a slow breath and forced herself back into conversation, laughing at the right moments, nodding along, but the awareness stayed. A few minutes later, Hannah excused herself to greet someone she knew, leaving Emily alone near the bar. Emily adjusted her clutch purse and turned, and there he was, closer now, ordering a drink. Up close, she noticed small details: the calm expression in his eyes, the faint line near his brow that suggested responsibility rather than stress, the quiet confidence in the way he stood. He glanced toward her again, and this time neither of them looked away immediately. There was an unspoken question hanging between them. Not bold, not rushed, just open. Emily felt her pulse in her fingertips. She could walk away, She could check her phone and pretend she hadn't noticed. That would be safe. That would be familiar. Instead, she stayed. The bartender handed him his drink. He thanked her politely, then turned slightly toward Emily, as if giving her space to leave but also leaving the door open. The music shifted to a softer tune, the saxophone low and smooth. The city lights reflected in the glass walls around them, wrapping the rooftop in a warm glow. Emily realized something in that moment. She didn't feel afraid. Nervous, yes. Guarded, maybe. But not afraid. For months, her heart had felt like a closed room. Tonight, without warning, a window had opened. She didn't know his name. She didn't know his story. All she knew was that something about this night felt different from the quiet Fridays she had grown used to. She had come out telling herself it was just for fun, just to prove she could still step into the world without thinking about the past. Yet standing there under the soft lights, aware of a stranger who felt strangely familiar, she sensed the night was gently shifting direction. And deep down, in a place she hadn't visited in a long time, hope stirred. Small, careful, but alive. Daniel Brooks did not waste the moment. After a quiet second that felt longer than it was, he gave Emily a small, respectful nod and stepped half a pace closer, leaving enough space so she would not feel crowded. "Hi," he said, his voice calm and low, easy to hear even over the music. "I'm Daniel." His smile was natural, not rehearsed. Emily felt her nerves settle just enough to answer. "Emily." Her name sounded softer than usual when she said it. He glanced toward the skyline behind her and then back at her face. "I promise I wasn't staring," he said lightly. The city looked impressive. Then you stepped into the view, and it became hard to look away. The words could have sounded smooth or careless from someone else, but from him they felt honest, almost shy. Emily laughed before she could stop herself, and the sound surprised her. It had been a long time since a stranger made her laugh that easily. "That's a dangerous line," she replied. "Good thing I don't use it often," he said, lifting his glass slightly. The tension between them softened. They began with simple questions. "Where are you from? What do you do?" Emily told him about her job at a marketing firm downtown, about long meetings and tight deadlines, and the strange satisfaction of seeing a campaign come to life. Daniel listened closely, not checking his phone, not scanning the room. When she finished, he asked thoughtful follow-up questions, the kind that showed he actually cared about the answer. Then he shared his own story. He was an architect, focused on restoring old buildings around Chicago. "I like giving old places another chance," he said. "There's something meaningful about saving history instead of tearing it down." The comment felt deeper than architecture, and Emily noticed it. She wondered what parts of his own life he was trying to rebuild. The music shifted from jazz to a slow, steady rhythm, and the crowd relaxed into the night. Hannah glanced over from across the room and gave Emily a subtle thumbs up before turning back to her conversation. Emily felt her cheeks warm, but stayed present. Daniel spoke about growing up in Michigan, about moving to Chicago after college, about how the lake made him feel grounded during hard weeks. He did not brag about success or try to impress her with big stories. He spoke simply, clearly, as if he had nothing to prove. Emily found herself sharing things she had not planned to say. She mentioned how she used to love painting but had stopped after her breakup. She admitted she had almost stayed home that night. Daniel's eyes softened. "I'm glad you didn't," he said quietly. The way he said it made her chest tighten in a good way. A group of people drifted toward the dance floor as the beat grew warmer, inviting movement without pressure. Daniel looked at her, hesitation flickering for a split second. "Would you like to dance?" he asked. No assumption, no pulling her forward, just a question. Emily hesitated only long enough to feel the old fear brush past her mind. The last time she had danced with someone, it ended in heartbreak months later. But this was not that story. This was now. She nodded. They moved to the edge of the dance floor where the lights were softer and the crowd thinner. Daniel placed one hand lightly at her waist, careful, steady, waiting for her to be comfortable. She rested her hand on his shoulder. The distance between them felt respectful, not rushed. They began to move slowly with the rhythm, small steps, quiet smiles. Emily felt her heartbeat sync with the music. She became aware of the warmth of his hand, the steady rise and fall of his breathing, the way he guided without control. "You're good at this," she said. "I try not to step on toes," he replied with a faint grin. The conversation flowed even as they moved. He asked about her family. She told him about Sunday dinners with her parents in the suburbs and her younger brother who never called enough. He shared stories about helping his dad fix things around the house when he was a teenager. His voice carried pride when he spoke about his family. Emily noticed the way his eyes changed when he talked about them. Strong, protective, loyal. As the song slowed further, the world around them seemed to blur. She forgot to check the time. She forgot the careful walls she had built over the past months. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen without being judged. Daniel did not flirt aggressively or try to impress her with bold moves. He simply stayed present. That presence felt rare. "Can I ask you something honest?" he said after a quiet pause. "Sure." "What almost kept you home tonight?" The question caught her off guard. She considered brushing it aside but decided against it. "Fear," she admitted. "I didn't want to start something I couldn't control." Daniel nodded slowly, as if he understood more than she explained. "Control is overrated," he said gently. "Sometimes the best things happen when we let go a little." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed sharply in his jacket pocket. The sound cut through the soft music like a thin crack in glass. He stiffened almost imperceptibly. Emily felt the shift immediately. He glanced at the screen, and whatever he read changed his expression. The calm warmth in his eyes turned serious, focused. "I'm sorry," he said, stepping back just enough to create space. "I need to take this." Emily forced a reassuring smile. "Of course." He moved toward a quieter corner near the stairwell, answering the call in a low voice. From across the room, she watched his posture change. One hand ran through his hair. His shoulders tightened. The easy rhythm of the night faded into uncertainty. Emily's heart sank slightly, not from jealousy or doubt, but from the sudden reminder that real life does not pause for rooftop magic. She turned away, giving him privacy, but her thoughts raced. Who was on the other end of that call? Was it someone important? Someone waiting for him? The music kept playing. Laughter continued around her. Yet the atmosphere felt different now, heavier, as if the night had quietly revealed another layer. She told herself not to assume anything. They had just met. Still, she could not ignore the feeling building in her chest. When Daniel finally ended the call, he stood still for a second, looking down at his phone before slipping it back into his pocket. He took a slow breath, straightened his jacket, and began walking back toward her. Emily prepared herself for whatever explanation might come, unaware that the easy, carefree night she had stepped into was about to unfold into something deeper than either of them expected. Daniel returned to Emily with a different expression, not distant, but serious, as if the night had gently reminded him of something important. The music still played behind them, soft and steady, but the mood between them had shifted. Emily searched his face for clues, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice calm even though her thoughts were not. Daniel exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck as if choosing his words carefully. "It's my dad," he said. "He's been in the hospital for a few weeks. Tonight just got a little harder." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Emily felt her chest tighten, not out of fear, but out of understanding. Real life had stepped into their perfect rooftop moment. "Is he going to be okay?" she asked gently. Daniel nodded, though his eyes showed concern. "The doctors are doing what they can. He's strong. But some days are better than others." There was no drama in his tone, no attempt to gain sympathy. Just honesty. Emily respected that. Around them, people laughed and glasses clinked, unaware that the air between them had grown heavier. She could sense he was torn, wanting to stay but knowing he needed to leave. "You should go," she said softly, even though part of her wished he wouldn't. He looked at her carefully, as if measuring her reaction. "I don't want you to think I'm making excuses," he replied. I meant what I said earlier. I'm glad you came tonight. His sincerity made it hard for her to hold back her feelings. Daniel, she said, meeting his eyes. Life happens. You don't owe me a perfect evening. For a second, something vulnerable passed across his face, something unguarded. Most people don't respond like that, he admitted. Emily gave a small smile. Most people are afraid of inconvenience. He almost laughed, but it faded quickly. The decision was clear now. He needed to leave. The music felt distant as they stepped away from the dance floor and toward the elevator. The rooftop lights seemed softer, the skyline less sparkling than before. Emily grabbed her coat, aware that the night had taken a turn she had not expected. Outside, the October wind wrapped around them, cool and sharp. Daniel insisted on walking her to her car before heading to the hospital. The streets were quieter now, traffic thinner, city lights reflecting off the pavement. They walked side by side, close but not touching, both aware that something important was unfolding. I should probably tell you something, Daniel said after a few steps. Emily glanced at him, bracing herself. My life isn't simple right now. Between work and my dad's health, I don't have much space for distractions. The word distractions lingered in the air. Emily felt a brief sting, but understood what he meant. Are you calling me a distraction? She asked lightly, trying to ease the tension. He shook his head quickly. No, I mean the opposite. You don't feel casual to me, and that scares me a little. His honesty stopped her in her tracks. She hadn't expected that. The city noise faded as she processed his words. She had walked into the evening promising herself she would not care too much, and now here she was, caring deeply after only a few hours. Scared because of timing? She asked. Scared because I don't want to start something I can't give my full attention to, he said. You deserve someone who shows up fully. The sincerity in his voice made her heart ache in a new way. This wasn't rejection, it was responsibility. They reached her car, but neither reached for the door. The space between them felt charged, fragile. Emily realized she had a choice. She could protect herself and step back before feelings grew stronger. Or she could take a risk, knowing life was rarely convenient. I'm not looking for perfect timing, she said finally. I'm looking for someone real, someone honest. You showed me that tonight. Daniel searched her face as if trying to see whether she truly meant it. It won't always look like rooftop views and slow music, he said. Some days will be hospital waiting rooms and canceled plans. Then we'll face those days when they come, she replied. The simplicity of her answer seemed to surprise him. For months, Emily had avoided uncertainty. After her last relationship ended, she promised herself she would only accept stability. Yet standing there under the streetlight, she realized stability without connection felt empty. Daniel stepped closer, but still left space for her to step back if she wanted. She didn't. I'd like to see you again, he said, his voice steady but hopeful. Not when everything is perfect, just soon. A soft smile touched her lips. I'd like that too. The tension between them shifted from uncertainty to quiet understanding. He lifted his hand slowly and brushed a strand of hair away from her face, his touch gentle and careful. There was no rush, no pressure, just warmth. Then he leaned in and pressed the softest kiss to her cheek. It was brief but meaningful, filled with promise rather than impulse. Emily closed her eyes for a second, letting the moment settle into her memory. When she opened them, she saw both strength and vulnerability in his expression. Text me when you get home, he said. And let me know how your dad is doing, she replied. He nodded, gratitude flickering in his eyes. They stood there 1 second longer than necessary, neither wanting to break the connection. Finally, he stepped back. Tonight wasn't what I expected, he said quietly. Me neither, she answered. As he walked toward his car, Emily watched him go, feeling a mix of excitement and uncertainty. The night had started as something light and playful, but it had grown deeper in a matter of minutes. She slipped into her driver's seat, her hands resting on the steering wheel as she replayed every conversation, every glance. She wasn't naive. She knew real life could complicate everything. Yet instead of fear, she felt calm. She had seen who he was when things became serious. He didn't hide. He didn't lie. He didn't pretend. He told the truth. And that mattered. As she drove through the quiet streets of Chicago, the city lights blurred softly around her. She realized that sometimes connection is not about perfect timing or flawless evenings. Sometimes it is about meeting someone at the exact moment life shows its cracks. She had gone out expecting laughter and distraction. Instead, she found honesty and courage, and as her phone buzzed with a message from Daniel, "Made it to the hospital. Thank you for understanding tonight." She smiled to herself, knowing that whatever came next, this night had already changed her heart in ways she never saw coming. The weeks after that rooftop night moved quickly, yet every day carried a new layer of meaning for Emily. What started as a simple exchange of messages turned into steady conversations that stretched past midnight, soft phone calls filled with quiet laughter, and honest updates about hospital visits and long work days. Daniel did not disappear into excuses, and Emily did not hide behind fear. Instead, they chose consistency. Every morning he sent a short text before heading to the hospital or a job site, and every evening she asked how his father was doing, never out of obligation but because she truly cared. Soon, caring felt natural. One afternoon during her lunch break, Emily surprised herself by walking into the hospital lobby with 2 coffees in hand. She had texted Daniel first, giving him the chance to say no, but he replied with gratitude instead. When she saw him sitting in a quiet corner near the elevators, tie slightly loosened, eyes tired yet warm, her chest tightened with something deeper than attraction. This was not a glamorous date. This was real life unfolding in fluorescent light and soft footsteps. He stood when he saw her, relief clear on his face, and accepted the coffee like it meant more than just a drink. They talked in low voices about the doctor's update, about small improvements, about hope that came in careful pieces. Emily listened closely, asking gentle questions, offering calm support without pretending to have answers. Later that day, Daniel introduced her to his father, a kind man with silver hair and patient eyes who studied her for a moment before smiling. "So you're Emily," he said warmly, squeezing her hand with quiet approval. The simple welcome made her feel included, not as a guest, but as someone stepping into a meaningful space. As days turned into weeks, their connection grew stronger, not through grand gestures, but through small, steady actions. Daniel began walking her home after late dinners, even when he was tired. Emily started leaving encouraging notes in his car when she knew he had long meetings ahead. They learned each other's rhythms, how he went quiet when worried, how she overthought when afraid of losing something good. Instead of running from those traits, they faced them together. One chilly evening in early winter, after visiting hours ended, they stepped outside the hospital and found the first light snow falling over Chicago. The city looked softer, wrapped in white, the noise reduced to a peaceful hum. Daniel stopped under a streetlight and looked at her with a seriousness that made her heart pause. "I didn't expect to meet someone right now," he admitted. "I thought my life was too complicated." Emily slipped her hands into her coat pockets, meeting his gaze without hesitation. "Life is always complicated," she said. "We just choose who we face it with." He smiled slowly, as if the truth of her words settled somewhere deep. He reached for her hand, and this time the gesture carried certainty, not fear, not doubt, certainty. Their fingers intertwined naturally, warmth against cold air. Months earlier, Emily would have questioned every step, searching for signs of future heartbreak. Now she felt grounded. She had seen him at his most vulnerable, and watched how he handled pressure with honesty and grace. That mattered more than perfect timing. As December arrived, Daniel's father grew stronger, and hope filled the hospital room like quiet sunlight. Emily found herself becoming part of their small circle, sharing stories, bringing homemade cookies, listening to family memories. She was no longer the woman who came out just for fun. She was someone who chose depth over distraction. One night, Daniel asked her to return to the rooftop where they first met. Snow edged the railing, and the skyline glittered under winter stars. Emily felt a rush of memory as they stepped into the same spot where their eyes had first met. This is where everything shifted, Daniel said softly. She looked around, noticing how the city seemed unchanged, yet she felt entirely different. Back then, she had been cautious, unsure if she was ready to open her heart again. Now, standing beside him, she felt steady. Not because love promised perfection, but because it offered partnership. Daniel turned toward her, his expression open and sincere. "Thank you for not walking away that night," he said. "You had every reason to." Emily smiled, emotion rising gently in her chest. "I almost did," she admitted. "But something told me to stay." He brushed his thumb lightly over her knuckles, a simple touch filled with meaning. "I don't know what the future holds," he continued, "but I know I want you in it." The words were not dramatic or loud, they were clear and thoughtful. Emily felt the weight of them settle warmly in her heart. She had once believed that love needed fireworks and flawless timing. Now she understood that real love often begins quietly, during uncertain seasons, when two people choose honesty over fear. She stepped closer, resting her head lightly against his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her cheek. The skyline shimmered below them, the same view that had sparked their first glance, yet now it symbolized something deeper. Growth, courage, new beginnings. The wind brushed past them, but she did not feel cold, she felt certain. She had gone out that October night looking for laughter and distraction, hoping to feel alive again after loss. Instead, she found a connection rooted in patience and truth. As they stood together overlooking Chicago, Emily realized that sometimes the nights we expect nothing from become the turning points we never forget. And in choosing to step out for fun, she had unknowingly stepped into a love that was calm, steady, and strong enough to face whatever came next.